In the final year of World War II, Canada's Parliament passed the National Housing Act of 1944. Out of this law came the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, CMHC, a new federal agency with an extraordinary tool, the power to
Welcome back to another reaction video. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for clicking on this video. As you can see, the three T's are not around and I'm just alone. So I want to learn something very peculiar, something I've always asked questions about. And the title of this video I'm reacting to is the difference between Canadian homes and European homes. Okay, Canadian houses and European houses. So the main contrast here, or the main question here, is why are Canadian houses built from wood? Why do Canadians build their houses from wood? I have no idea, because we don't build houses here out of wood. We build houses out of cement blocks or mud blocks. So let me see what Canadians have, and please, let's go. I don't want to talk too much.
Europe, a house is built to stand for 200 years. In Canada, most homes are designed to last barely 50 years.
Why?
Over 90% of Canadians...
But is that true? That because that's like a claim, that's a fact that he's stating there. I don't know if the fact is true or the claim is true, that Canadian houses are designed to stand for 50 years.
...to last barely 50 years. Over 90% of Canadian housing is wood frame, and the reason has almost nothing to do with forests.
Okay.
It traces back to a single church in Chicago in 1833.
Nah, then many Canadians have said they build their houses out of wood because there's a lot of, like, they have enough forest, they have enough wood to build houses out of wood. So I don't think it's not exclusively because of the forest, but I think the forest is a contribution.
Single church in Chicago in 1833, a federal policy from 1944, and an industry that spent millions making sure nobody asked questions. A German code official walks through a Canadian suburb and stops, baffled. In Germany, national building codes limit wood frame homes to 2 stories, citing fire risk and long-term durability.
Okay.
The expectation is simple: a house should last at least a century, often 2. In France,
some of you Canadians, you have like really beautiful homes, like extremely beautiful homes. Some people have shared pictures of where they live with me, and I feel like they live in palaces. I tell you, you guys' homes are absolutely beautiful. Oh my God. You have homes that we only consider politicians in these countries to have, in this our country to have.
2. In France and the Netherlands, masonry walls and concrete floors are the norm, and buildings are handed down through generations. The idea of tearing down a home after 50 or 60 years would sound absurd to most Europeans. Yet in Canada, the average wood frame house is designed for a service life of just 50 to 80 years. After that, repairs and major envelope upgrades become routine, or the building is replaced entirely. Over 90% of new homes in Canada still use wood framing, despite the climate, despite the risk of fire, and despite the knowledge that these structures are temporary by European standards.
But those are European standards, not Canadian standards. So I still have a question mark. I still want to know why Canadians build their houses out of wood, because here we build houses mostly out of mud blocks. But when our grandparents, they used to build their houses out of sticks. They would make sticks and then make mud on it, like make it out of mud. And those houses lived, the houses in this city that were built in the 1920s. The houses here in Yaoundé that were built in the 1920s out of sticks and mud. So they are going to pin sticks all around, tie them with something, and then put mud on it. Yeah, those houses live really long. My grandfather had those. My grandfather have those houses. Some were built out of bamboos that live really long. And I don't know why Insect don't eat those things. Maybe they treated them. I don't know. I didn't have the chance to ask my grandfather before he passed away in 2014. And it was, yeah, it was very heavy.
These structures are temporary by European standards. The National Building Code now allows wood towers up to 12 stories, a move that would be unthinkable in most of Western Europe, where code height limits for timber rarely exceed 2 stories without special engineering review. The contrast is striking. Canada, a wealthy and technically advanced country, has normalized short-lived wood-based housing, while Europe expects permanence. For many European regulators, this isn't just odd, it is reckless. The
Reckless?
question is,
How can that be reckless? If Canadians knew it's reckless, why would they do it? I don't think it's reckless. I don't know. Don't really know, honestly. He's giving it. I don't know if the narrator is European or
regulators, this isn't just odd, it is reckless. The question is, how did two regions with similar resources and capabilities arrive at such different ideas of what a house should be? In 1833, a Chicago carpenter named Augustine Taylor built St. Mary's Catholic Church, using a method that looked nothing like the heavy, hand-hewn timber frames of Europe. Instead of thick beams and complex joinery, Taylor's crew nailed together thin, standardized studs, 2x4s that ran in one piece from the foundation right up to the roof. This was balloon framing, a technique so radical for its time that some early critics called it flimsy, even dangerous. But what balloon framing lacked in tradition, it made up for in speed and economy. With just nails and mass-produced lumber, a small team could raise a house in days, not weeks. The secret was the continuous vertical studs, which allowed entire walls to be assembled flat on the ground and then lifted into place in one go.
Wow.
As the decades passed, the method spread along rail lines and into Canada, carried by builders chasing cheap land and fast profits. By the 1880s, though, a new challenge emerged. Continuous studs were hard to source as old-growth forests dwindled. Worse, the open wall cavities acted like chimneys in a fire, drawing flames from basement to attic in seconds. Builders responded by inventing platform framing. Each floor was built as a separate unit, with shorter studs stacked on a solid deck.
I want to ask a question. I've always heard people talk about the addict, like the addict. I don't know what's like the addict of a house, but I've always heard that when people are mentioning about a house.
This approach not only cut fire risk, but also matched the shorter lumber now coming from second-growth forests. By the turn of the century, platform framing had become the North American standard, setting the stage for a construction culture built on speed, availability, and the logic of mass production, rather than on any sense of permanence. In the final year of World War II, Canada's Parliament passed the National Housing Act of 1944. Out of this law came the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, CMHC, a new federal agency with an extraordinary tool, the power to decide which homes were eligible for government-backed mortgage insurance. The timing was no accident. A wave of returning soldiers and a severe housing shortage forced officials to prioritize speed and affordability above all else. CMHC's first technical bulletins, drafted by a team of engineers and policy staff, borrowed directly from the US Federal Housing Administration playbook. The American Federal Housing Administration had already standardized wood platform framing as the preferred method for mass housing, and Canadian officials saw no reason to reinvent the wheel. A retired CMHC official who spent decades in the agency's technical division described the process as adapting the Federal Housing Administration Handbook for Canadian timber and climate. The result was a set of standard housing specifications that made platform wood framing the default for any home seeking insured financing.
So I feel like what I'm picking out here at this stage of the video is that there is an agency or an association in Canada that standardize what a wooden house would be. Like if you're building a house, generally a house, what are the standards that you must put in there? Or maybe like if you're building a wood house particularly, what are you going, that there are certain things that are already standardized and you have to follow them. That is nice, very nice, because it's easy for people to verify if you're following the building code or not. But here we don't have any code, like nothing. People don't even submit their buildings for review, like anybody just build their house. No, but nobody submits their structures or their building plan for review or anything. People build wherever, however they want, except you're building in the city center, okay? But anything out of the city, you do what you want.
Municipalities eager to unlock federal funding amended their local bylaws to match the CMHC template. Builders followed suit, since deviation meant losing access to the cheapest loans on the market. By the early 1950s, Over 85% of new insured homes in Canada were wood frame,
Oh,
a figure
that
that would
much.
only climb in the decades ahead. The policy had quietly locked in a construction method for a generation, not because of climate or tradition.
Ooh, that's a whole street of wooden houses. Like, all these houses are made out of wood? No, you're kidding me. No way that is true. No way that is true. Oh my God.
Ahead. The policy had quietly locked in a construction method for a generation, not because of climate or tradition, but because a handful of officials, guided by American standards, wrote it into the rules. British Columbia and Quebec control the lion's share of Canada's softwood lumber industry, feeding a supply chain that stretches from sawmills to urban construction sites. This sector isn't just big, it's a pillar of the national economy, generating billions in exports and employing tens of thousands. Over the past decade, the Canadian Wood Council has become the industry's most vocal advocate, channeling around $40 million into research, technical studies, and government relations.
Okay.
That money wasn't just spent on science, it was targeted at rewriting the rules of what could be built and how tall. In 2015, the National Building Code lifted the cap on wood frame buildings from 4 to 6 stories, citing new fire safety research and the economic logic of denser, faster construction. 5 years later, another amendment doubled the limit, and 12 stories were now possible for engineered mass timber, providing
12 stories. How can you build a 12-story building out of wood? Like, how long are they? Like, how long are those? I know you guys call it 4x4 or whatever, like those timbers. How long are they to get up there? And how do you join them to be that stable? Especially with earthquake, wind, and things like that. And then also depreciation, rot, and things like that. Oh my God. Look at this building. From wood. If I tell somebody here, the person will absolutely say I'm lying. The person will refuse to believe it.
were now possible for engineered mass timber, provided certain performance standards were met. The Canadian Wood Council's own spokesperson described the lobbying effort as a partnership, industry experts, code officials, and engineers working to prove that tall wood is not only feasible but desirable. These changes didn't happen in a vacuum. The push for taller wood buildings was backed by the scale of Canada's forestry sector and a coordinated campaign to present timber as both climate-friendly and cost-effective. The result is a building code that allows for wood towers unthinkable in most of Europe, where regulators still see timber as a material for cottages, not city skylines. A Vancouver homeowner stands in her living room staring at a patch of black mold creeping up from the floorboards. She bought her condo in the early 2000s, just as the city's housing market was heating up. Within a decade, water stains appeared on the drywall. Soon after, the unmistakable smell of rot filled the air. She wasn't alone. Across British Columbia, more than 65,000 condo units built during the boom years were quietly failing. The culprit was hidden in the walls, moisture trapped by poorly detailed vapor barriers, with no way to escape. In the cold, wet climate of the West Coast, condensation formed behind the cladding, feeding mold and decay. Structural studs softened, exterior panels warped, and entire facades had to be stripped and rebuilt. The numbers are staggering. By the end of the crisis, repair bills topped $4 billion. Some owners lost their homes. Others spent years in courtrooms battling builders and insurance companies. A condo lawyer who represented dozens of these cases recalls the confusion. No one could agree who was responsible or how far the liability reached. The legal fallout forced the province to rewrite warranty laws and demand stricter inspections for new wood frame buildings. But the technical risk remains. Wood chars at a rate of 0.6 millimeters per minute in a fire, and moisture can still find its way past even the best membranes. For many, the leaky condo disaster became a warning. When a nation builds for speed and cost, the price is sometimes paid in hidden failures, and by the people who can least afford it. Canada now faces a challenge that would have seemed unimaginable a generation ago. The country must build 3.87 million new homes by 2031. The target, set by federal and provincial governments, is meant to address a housing shortage that touches
Over 3 million houses by 2031 is a lot. I don't know. You can build that with blocks. I mean, wood is the only answer. And I believe that almost 4 million, in fact, 4 million homes. I believe that at this point, Canadians must have figured out a better way to build houses out of wood. I feel like the main idea I'm getting from here is that speed and profitability, right? The house builders, the real estate developers want to build for their maximize their income and also out of speed because the demand is getting really high. I'm understanding that.
The target set by federal and provincial governments is meant to address a housing shortage that touches every city and almost every family. Meeting this number, planners argue, means building fast and building at scale, almost always with wood. According to a municipal economist, the cost difference between a 6-story wood frame apartment and a concrete one in Toronto is now just 5%, a gap so small that speed and available trades become the deciding factors. But the real debate isn't about initial price tags, it's about how long these homes are meant to last and who will pay when they need to be rebuilt or repaired. Canadian wood frame buildings are typically designed with a service life of 50 to 80 years. After that, major repairs or even full replacement become part of the expected cycle. Over a 50-year horizon, some studies show the total cost of a wood building, when you add construction, insurance, maintenance, and retrofits, can approach parity with concrete. Yet the difference is stark. In much of Europe, homes are expected to stand for a century or more, often handed down through generations. The question now facing policymakers is whether Canada can afford to keep building short-lived housing at a moment when every new home counts. Is it enough for a house to last only as long as a single mortgage, or should a national building strategy aim for permanence? The answer will shape not just how Canadians live today, but what they leave behind. Canada's cities keep rising on wood frames, even as demand outpaces supply and climate extremes test every shortcut. What is called tradition is actually policy, profit, and inertia.
Honestly, I have a question. Just tell me. I don't know. I feel like the narrator is more favored about like houses built out of blocks or brick. I don't know. Like, I think a Canadian will be able to explain more. I felt like when I saw the video, I thought it was a Canadian. And of course, we don't always see these videos before we react to them. So it's obvious that I would not know anything. Please tell me if what he has claimed in this video is true. I don't even know if he's Canadian or not, but yeah. But then I'll be willing to check out another video. If you are willing to share another video, I would like to check it out. Thank you so much. Love you, Canadians. Respect. Yes.